thank you all again, and Dwayne, thank you. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. And I will share with y'all, I have one of those insurance policies, and it has been fully paid up, so I know that, that part will be taken care of. Probably have enough to actually bury me, but I am going to be cremated, so maybe there will be some money left over, for my family. I'm going to kind of be not all over the place. I'm mainly going to talk about the actual funeral service itself, particularly what we do here at Faith, and then information about our memorial garden where we inter cremains. As Dwayne was making his presentation, a few things came to mind, and I just talked with him and told him that I was going to share this with y'all because there are just so many things that you don't know when you are in this situation. And for example, with organ donation, and tissue is an organ, so that's why it's called organ donation. When my son-in-law died, Michael, because of the situation, he was at a friend's house. It was the coroner did come, pronounced him, and his body was actually taken because it was all so quick. His body was taken to the coroner's office because they had no idea what was going on. And things happened very quickly where organ donation is concerned, and I didn't remember the name of the organization, but tissue, whoever, they get in contact with you pretty quickly, okay, about whether you're going to donate organs. And because of the circumstances of Michael's death, although he was being cremated, my daughter wanted to see him. She said to me, "Mom, this is not going to register that he's really gone if I don't see him." So went to good friends of hers at that time in Dawsonville, had a funeral home, and so, they prepared Michael and for the viewing in the casket. And at the same time, well, before that, the folks who were for the organ donation were getting in touch and wanting signatures and stuff. And the funeral director there talked to Christy and said, one thing you need to be aware of as far as tissue donation is concerned. And I might be getting a little graphic here, but his suggestion, because the organ folks did not share this with her, they just said, "Are you going to do this or not?" And she did, but the funeral director told her, "Since you're doing a viewing, you need to know that you may not want to give the tissue for any area of the body that will be visible." So that's not something that they have to, their job is they want to get, obviously it's wonderful to have this tissue and stuff, but if there is going to be a viewing, you need to be aware of that, okay? And it might not be a problem for you, but it could be a problem. So I just wanted to and I just asked Dwayne about that, and he agreed that was something that I should share with you guys. And again, it's just the circumstances of death, whether the coroner comes or not. When you are in hospice, actually you're told not to call 911. You call the hospice people, they come out and pronounce you, and then the funeral home is called. So that's the difference where hospice is concerned. So I have lots of information to share with y'all, and I didn't put this information out on the table because I wanted to walk you through some of it. So we're just going to pass it and let it go around. The first information, Betty, are you in here? No, she's working off. Okay, as you all know, Ray Benedict died earlier this year in January, and Betty had a lot of good, not good experiences, but learnings from that experience. So she has written a short little thing about some things that you need to be aware of when you are dealing with a loved one who has, and this is not estate stuff per se, but it's just good practical information. So take a copy of this. Secondly, and I thank Terry for this. Terry shared with us something. I don't know, where did you get this information? Remind me.
That was from Connie, Briggs.
Connie Cubitt? No, Connie Delaney. Okay, who's a visit current. Okay, same thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is another, basically kind of like what Betty has done, 40 after death comprehensive checklist, 47 things to consider. So, you take this information, use what is useful, and forget the rest. But I've looked over this, and I think there's also some very good, useful information. And I'm one of those people that, why reinvent the wheel? If you've got the information, share it. So, but I would ask if during the presentation, if you would maybe not sit there and read that, but listen. See, I know what you people do. That's why I never put out copies of my sermon before the service. Because I know what you're going to do. You're going to sit there and read it. So what we are going to do now is we are going to move and talk about funeral/memorial services, kind of in general, but even more specifically the way we do them here at Faith Presbyterian in the Presbyterian tradition. Funerals are different in any Christian church and obviously any religion. When I went to my niece-in-law's father's funeral, he was Muslim, and he was literally, the hole was dug, and there was a white sheet. He was put on a white sheet and lowered into the ground. So each religion has its own traditions, and even within the Christian religion, different denominations kind of have more of their traditions, particularly as far as the actual service is concerned. So obviously we're Presbyterian, so that's how I'm approaching this. So I want to get two things passed out now. First of all, funeral memorial services, which again, we call it a service of witness to the resurrection. I don't know if you've been to a funeral memorial service here. In front of the bulletin, it says a service of witness to the resurrection, because we are witnessing the resurrection of this person to eternal life. So we have these, and then the second is a brochure about the memorial service reception that we offer here. And my thanks to Carol Furtwängler and to Betty Benedict for putting this information together. So also a copy of this for everybody. And then we're going to look at all of this first, and then I'm going to move to the information about the memorial garden. When we are dealing with the death of a loved one, as Dwayne says, it's really those in the list of crises in our lives, that's at the top. It's at the top. It's the hardest thing we ever deal with is the loss of a loved one. And even in those circumstances where there may not have been a good relationship with that loved one, it's still a crisis and it's still hard. So anything, as Dwayne said, that we can do in advance to prepare for this eventuality is a wonderful gift to those, to the family, to the friends, whoever is having to make decisions. So I want us to look at the form that says funeral, memorial service, service of witness to the resurrection. And this is information that, and I'm going to talk in first person. That's easier for me. When I sit down with the family and we're planning the service and making decisions, this is the kind of information that I want, that I ask for. So, I mean, some of it's going to be very obvious. Name, home address, date of birth, date of death, where you were born, and state, city and state, date of death. There's always going to be a funeral home, a crematorium. Someone is going to be involved in taking care of the body. So we need that information, and the contact, who I can be in contact with at the funeral home, and the phone number. Primary family contacts. And you might think, well, you got my contact in the church directory. But remember Dwayne saying something about sometimes there's family conflict? I want to know who it is that I am supposed to be talking to. And that's why I have this in here. Who are the primary family contacts? So that we can plan the service. That doesn't mean that the other members of the family, other people don't have input, but no one, the funeral home, the pastor, doesn't need one person or two people coming in, sitting down in your office and telling you what they want, and then the next day, another family member calling up and saying, no, we want this. So we need that information. Location of service. Hopefully, if you're a member of this church or you're affiliated with this church, we hope that you will have your service here in this church. But obviously, there's also the funeral home. We need that address or other. I have done a service in a person's home before. They were going to take the cremains somewhere else out of state, and somebody else was going to take care of that, but they wanted to have the service in the daughter's home. So that's information there. Flipping over to the second page. Date and time of service, and I've got there to be determined with Faith's pastor. Obviously, if it's here at the church, we have to look at the church calendar. We have to look at my calendar. We have to look at, are there people who need to travel from distances that need to, that you want to be here? So there are different factors that direct the time and the date of the service. Also, even if you're having it at the funeral home, obviously, when is the chapel available? You can't just walk in and say, well, I want this service at such and such a date at such and such a time. Well, they can only, just like they can only do one service at a time. So you have that. But you would still need to talk with the pastor before you set the date and the time to make sure the pastor's available. I can't speak for other pastors. I mean, I certainly would do my best to be available and try to cancel anything. But what if I'm on vacation 3 weeks, 3 states away from here? There can be extenuating circumstances. I also, and I think everyone in here held up their hand and said they were going to be cremated. I didn't stand up to look, but I also call that the gift of cremation. You may remember when Helga Silva died, Joe made the decision, I don't want to do a service now. I want to wait. And when I die, then we'll do a service for both of us together. Helga was cremated, kept Helga's ashes until Joe died, and then we did their service together. We interred their ashes together, and then we did their service together. So there is besides the financial aspect, there are, I feel, lots of positives. And certainly I think the positives of cremation outweigh the negatives, particularly now that we have some more regulation in the process and we don't have to worry so much about what's going to happen anymore. Where is the burial to occur or the interment of ashes? If we're not interring the ashes here in our memorial garden, where is that going to take place? And actually, I just realized I should have put date. So kind of write that in or just remember that. I should have, because we can't necessarily assume that, particularly if it's interment of ashes, that it would necessarily occur on the same day. I mean, you may even want to transport your loved one. Like, Bill could have just as easily had his sister's cremains interred in New Orleans, but done a service here if he wanted to. So I think y'all get that. We need to know if your loved one was a veteran. And if so, what branch of service? And do you want to have military honors if the person is interred here? Do you want to have military honors? And if so, generally speaking, the funeral home helps with the arrangements for military honors, makes the contacts for that. But we also need to know who their main contact person is so that we can get in touch with them if we need to. There's always a little logistics about where it's going to occur and where they need to stand, and there's just behind-the-scenes logistics that are best settled and determined before the day of the service and of the interment of the ashes. Reception following the service. Do you want to have a reception? And honestly, while I don't know that we've ever had a reception here for someone who did not have a service here, we could certainly do that, but that's what the wonderful brochure tells you all about, what our funeral care committee under the umbrella of our congregational care team, what they provide. So we have that information in this brochure, and you can see there what needs to, the things that you would need to determine for the reception. And as we are sitting down and talking about the service, we would look at this and we would talk about this some, but I would also put you in touch of those people on the congregational care planning team who head up the memorial service receptions. So let me stop. Any questions so far? I don't want to go too fast. Okay. It's interesting. We think, you just don't ever think about, well, what were my loved one's favorite scriptures? What were my loved one's favorite hymns? But you don't necessarily think about it right now. But that's some very important information for the service. They may have had a whole bunch. I mean, I pity the poor soul who has to determine what scriptures and hymns are going to be read and hymns are going to be sung at my service, because I just assume y'all read scripture and sing hymns and say hallelujah and be about your business. But it's very important. If you already have that information, yes, again, as Dwayne said, these are hard conversations. Because even though we know in our hearts of hearts, we're going to die. Each one of us is going to die. But we do not die without hope. That's the thing we also have to remember. But the more we can talk about this information with our loved ones, when that moment comes, whether it's a total and complete surprise that literally knocks you off your feet and you can't even breathe, to your loved one who's been in hospice and you know this is going to happen, regardless. And I think Betty mentioned something in her information about that time after the death of a loved one. You, regardless of the circumstances, you're kind of in this fog. And, sometimes the fog can be a week, 2 weeks. It may last longer than that. To this day, my daughter cannot tell you who was at Michael's service. She has no idea. She has no idea who all those people were she greeted at the funeral home. She has no idea. You're just, I don't know if it's the body's protective mechanism. I don't know what it is. But there is this fog. And that's another reason why it's wonderful to have this pre-planning for your funeral, for everything that needs to be done with the funeral home, and pre-planning for the service. Because then you're not making decisions and wondering. I cannot urge you strongly enough to take the time to sit down with your loved one, whoever is going to be the person that's going to be driving this bus when you die, and help them. It is a most wonderful, again, it is perhaps even the most wonderful gift to be able to say, well, let me go and pull this out of Mom's file. Here's what Mom wanted. So favorite scriptures, favorite hymns. Will there be other pastors participating in the service here in this church? If there are other pastors to participate, that needs the pastor's approval, the church's pastor's approval. That's probably pretty standard across most churches, I would think, but that's something that we do here. And then information there, because obviously we have to be in touch with them. Speakers for remembrances. These are also known as eulogies, but we like to use the term remembrances here because we're hoping that, it's also moments of celebration. So that information is needed. We ask that the remembrances not exceed 3 minutes because we know that even though it says do not exceed 3 minutes, if we get it 5 minutes or under, we're doing really good. The other thing, and I did not write it on here, but the other thing I personally require is that it has to be written out. The person has to write it out. Not just walk up there to the lectern and just speak extemporaneously. Because first of all, that's when you tend to kind of go on and on. But there's even a more practical reason. Maybe you just can't, maybe you become overwhelmed and you can't speak. If it's written down, then I or the pastor can walk over and stand there with you and we can read it for you. But we can't do that if it's not written down. So it must be written down, their comments, their remembrances. Things such as a guest book. If you want a guest book, as people come in, we have a little small lectern out there, and people sign in, guests. We can provide one. We have one we can provide for $10, or you can provide your own. Most folks provide their own, but we have some if you would like. Flowers for the service. These are not the same as the flowers that are used at the reception, unless you want to use flowers that are in the service for the reception also. That's entirely up to you. But do you wish to have flowers for the service? If you do, you will need to make the arrangements with a florist. You can certainly use the church's florist if you wish, but that's up to you. Here at Faith, and again, I'm having to speak from our perspective, compensation for the director of music or whoever the accompanist may be here. Our music director is part-time, and so they are, for instance, Philip is not compensated for anything beyond his responsibilities here as far as music at worship and stuff. So we do ask that you compensate Philip. And I did not put a price down because a lot of it depends on maybe how much Philip does during the service. He may also sing. And if he's playing and you also ask him to sing, that might warrant a little more compensation than if there was just the singing, the beginning, the processional, recessional, and the hymns. So, and then compensation for pastor or pastors. Funeral and memorial services are a part of our responsibilities as pastors. If other pastors are involved, the family needs to talk with them directly. We don't get involved in those conversations. And then I put down a place there for family questions and concerns, because there's always something that's going to come up because each situation is different. But I would ask right now, do y'all have any questions, concerns about basically how we do services here? And I do think a lot of this material translates to any service, any Christian service of a memorial or funeral service. So I think, if you fill this out, even though it says Faith Presbyterian Church and you went to another church, they probably wouldn't be too upset if you had this information to give to them, would be my guess. So, any questions about this information? Yeah. And they'll say, well, how much do you want me to pay you? And I'm like, oh. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you, Carol. Was that? Mm-hmm. It is. Mm-hmm. And I would also say is that remember, your pastor is also saying goodbye to a person that they have loved and cared for. And sometimes that can be really hard. Anything else about this? Okay. Well, obviously, you have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Treva? Well, I'm going to talk about that I'm talking about, okay. Well, yeah, I'll just go ahead and mention that. Treva was talking about putting this document, whatever, on file here at the church. If you want to, we can certainly do that to have a copy of it. And again, that would be helpful. What we would do is you would fill it out and we would scan it and keep it in a folder in our Dropbox. So let's move on to our memorial garden. I've got three, first I got to give them to you. So everything is stapled together here, but it's three separate documents having to do with our memorial garden. Hopefully you all know that we have this beautiful, natural area behind, I always say behind the church, but that's actually, how many of you know that that is actually the front of the church? Not that. That's really considered the back of the church. That's the front of the church. Although you can't see it, even from the road. But anyway, but the memorial garden where we inter ashes, cremains, it's back here. And it is, I just think it's just one of the loveliest places I have ever seen. And see, I can say that because I had not one iota to do with it. And I also say that, Dwayne, thank you for your kind remarks about this building. And I can say I agree with you because I had nothing to do with this building either. So I can say, yes, this is a wonderful, beautiful sanctuary and space that we have here. So the first document is our actual memorial garden policy. I really don't need to read over this with you. You can read this for yourselves. Just a couple of things to highlight. If you do have military honors, they will follow after the ashes are interred. Okay? We see there who is eligible for interment of ashes in our garden. There is the second page is the actual request for interment for the interment of ash remains, which would need to be completed. You can also complete this beforehand, and you can prepay if you wish for the placing of your cremains in our memorial garden. There is a service, and again, as I said, if there are military honors, the military honors occur after the ashes are interred. Let's see. There is currently, and I'm not going to say that this might not change. I mean, we do have inflation. But currently, there's a one-time charge per person, not per family, but per person of $750 to have ashes interred in our memorial garden. And that money doesn't go into our operating budget. It goes into a special memorial garden fund. First of all, it pays for the little bronze plaque that, again, if you have been out and seen our memorial garden, there's this beautiful stone out there, and it has the little bronze plaques with the person's name, year of birth, and year of date. We keep it very simple, okay? And those plaques, and actually, Peggy's not here. She sent me an email not too long ago. Peggy Rich orders those for us. I think just those little bronze plaques are like $125 now. Oh, they're $195? Okay, wow, y'all know more than I do. So, we're talking almost $200 just for that little bronze plaque. The remaining goes into our Memorial Garden Fund for the upkeep and maintenance of the garden, because as you can imagine, like every year we have to buy we're continuously adding new plants or replacing plants that have died. We got hit, a couple of years ago by the freeze, and we lost several plants out there then. So there's that continual maintenance of the garden. So the rest of that money goes toward that, even to, putting out mulch. Costs money. So that's what that money goes for. And I have had a couple of people come to me and, let's just say, not happy that we ask for the $750 for the interment fee, let's call it that. And it does say in here, if there is an issue, a challenge with paying that, just talk to me. We will figure it out. But For most people, it's not. But I remember, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago or so, a family was talking to, and I think Treva was in there with me when we had the conversation. They had actually talked to a cemetery that also had an area. I think they had a columbarium, and it was going to be several $1,000s to put the ashes into the box. So we feel pretty good. We feel pretty good about our $750. Yeah, and that's in the policy that we have. Yeah, but we do have an urn. Okay, I have to share this story with y'all. You know what story I'm going to tell to you. So, and what was the family's name? Help me. Okay, now I don't feel bad. She doesn't remember either. Okay, the parents whose ashes are in our memorial garden were members here years ago. Blair's, right. And so the children wanted their ashes interred here. So obviously we needed 2 urns because they wanted them poured at the same time, which is what we do when it's a husband and wife or partner or whatever. Same thing we did with Joe and Helga. So we needed 2 urns. So we told them, well, you guys are going to need to buy an urn. We didn't, and then we already had our urn. And so the day of the service, one of the sons comes walking in and has the urn in the box, and we have our urn sitting out. It was the very same urn from Amazon. We ordered it on Amazon. I mean, we got ours from Amazon. Ordered it on Amazon. They ordered theirs from Amazon. It was, of all the urns that are out there, it was the very same urn. I just think that's kind of a cool story. It's kind of a neat story, you know? So, anyway, but we do have 1 urn. No, take that back. We have 2 now. Sorry, they gave it to us. They were like, well, what are we going to do with it? So they gave us that urn. So we have 2 matching urns. Yes.
Mom and Dad were buried in a biodegradable urn.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to pour, they just dug the hole and put them in there.
No, it says in the policy, we don't put anything biodegradable. It's the ashes, the cremains are poured directly into the dirt, per the policy. That's not a Susan decision. That's the policy, approved by the session. So, and let me see. I know it's in here because I read it earlier today. Yeah. Just a reminder that ashes of any animals, as much as I know we all love our fur babies, we do not inter the ashes of our fur babies in our memorial garden. Okay? And I would probably be the first person who would do it, so therefore you know that I didn't come up with this.
So if we get our ashes from the funeral home in a box,
Mm-hmm.
we can use the urn here.
Oh, yeah. What we do, I take, just so you know, unless the family wishes to participate, and I always invite the family and say, would you like to assist in transferring the cremains from the container that you received them in from the funeral home or crematorium? I'm happy for you to do that, or, I do it myself. We just transfer them from the container that they came in into the urns. Nope. Sorry about that. No, that's why it's all very natural, and it's kind of interesting what you were talking about, the green with the bodies and stuff, and I'm like, you don't get much greener than what we do here.
Your specification for here, what is it,
Treva, you want to go get one of the urns? We'll show you what our urn looks like. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful urn. Yeah, but she'll go get it. Yeah.
That's what everybody that's buried there.
Right. Yes. Yeah. We'll show you. Yeah. I mean, if they had their own urn, we're happy for. Oh yes. Yeah. I mean, if you have an urn that you've purchased, that you've had in your family, whatever, we're certainly happy to use that. It's just that most people don't. And you don't, and the way we're looking at it, you don't need, unless there's a specific urn that you want, there's really no need to have that expenditure when we have an urn or urns here at the church. So Treva's got the urn. Comes in this very nice velvet bag, as you can see. Treva can do her Vanna. So, as you can see, it's very simple but beautiful. But yes, you are certainly welcome to provide your own urn. But the urn will not go in the ground. Only the cremains go in the ground, and we will give the urn back to you. Okay? Anything else just basically about the memorial garden, questions, whatever, about the policy, I should say. The second sheet is just our request for interment of ash remains. Just need to fill that out. You don't need me to go over that. Look over it. If you have any questions, you can certainly let me know. And then the last one is we like to maintain, and to be honest with you, we haven't done the greatest job in the world of doing that yet, but we're getting this going. This is an information sheet for those whose remains are interred in our garden, and it just says in lieu of this information sheet, you can just provide the obituary, or you can fill this out and provide an obituary, because sometimes obituaries are very short and they don't give a lot of personal details that you may want to have on record here at the church. So you can either complete this form, you can just give us the obituary, or you can complete this form and we can attach the obituary to it.